Very good morning. I'll be starting the session in another 2-3 minutes. Let me meanwhile share the window. Okay, we are another 2-3 minutes to 10. So I will be starting the session at 10 a.m. Let me just confirm whether the audio is coming all right. Okay. Today, I basically will be talking about the implications on Indian students, basically on the President Trump's election victory. I'll be covering on various areas, including the visa chances, that is F1 visa for students who are going to the US for education. I will also be talking about the implication of his victory on the OPT and also on the H1 visa and H4 visa. There are a lot of talks going on what we can expect during the second tenure of President Trump. So I will be going into detailing of it, and it's very essential that you understand how much power he genuinely has, and then plan a strategy which will help you protect yourself and help you reach that goal. Meanwhile, if you do have any queries, you are welcome to keep putting that in the chat section. I will be taking those questions and then I will start answering them as well as I proceed with my session here. We have another 60 seconds. Let's start at 10. For people who do not know me, my name is Mohammad Abdullah. I am basically a mechanical engineer. Subsequently, I got All India rank 17 in GATE, joined Indian Institute of Science Bangalore for my master's, did my MBA from MDI Gurgaon. I was also the president of the student council there. I started my career with Power Finance Corporation, which is a government of India company. Later worked for some time in CRISIL. In case you don't know of CRISIL, CRISIL is India's #1 financial rating and advisory firm. And since 2003, I have been an entrepreneur. I lead the Conduira endeavor, and we are also a funded company. We have been funded by Malayalam Manorama. We also have been funded by National Skill Development Corporation, NSDC, which is a government of India's nodal agency for promoting employment and career opportunities in India. So, Conduira, we are established both in Hyderabad as well as in Vishakhapatnam. So, if you are from either of the two cities, you're welcome to reach out to us. And even if you're from elsewhere, we have a lot of students from elsewhere too. You can connect to us in the message session. I have put the WhatsApp numbers where you can actually ping us. All right. So, with that background, let me quickly talk about what exactly is the plan in this session. And I'm also going to be talking about, as I just mentioned, 3-4 elements. One, the impact of President Trump's victory uh, on the visa chances for those who are planning to go to the US for education. But let's not forget, when we Indians go abroad, we are not just looking at education, we are also looking forward to staying there, if not for a long time, at least for a short time, gaining experience through what is known as OPT or optional practical training. Post that, yes, many of us, in fact, majority of us, will look forward to getting a work visa, which is the H1B visa. And by then, if you're married, you would also have dependents, and those dependents will be in H4 visa. And later, of course, you will look forward to, at least majority would look forward to, even citizenship there possibly. So in this session, I'm going to be touching on the impact of President Trump's policy in all these. All right, I'm going to start with F1 visa. I'm going to be talking about OPT. I'm going to be then talking about H1B visa. I'm going to talk about H4 visa. Now, the question comes, how do we know what President Trump has in mind? Now, here the answer is quite simple, actually. The fact of the matter is, this is his second stint. In the first stint, he has actually done a lot of things. Few of them good for us, few of them not good for us. And that probably gives us a picture of what we can expect. Now, how powerful is President Trump? That is also something that we need to understand, because president might have certain ideas, but the question is, can he legally implement them? So to understand that, we need to understand how the US government works. Now, the way the US government works is very much similar to the way the Indian government works. In India, we have the Prime Minister. I'm not talking about the president here, because he's more, he's the head of the government, but he's more a figurehead. Prime Minister is the person who drives the policy in India. Now, Prime Minister is one, and then we have the Lok Sabha, we have the Rajya Sabha. Can Prime Minister take any decision he wants? Answer is no. Laws have to be passed by the houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. But Prime Minister becomes very powerful when both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are controlled by his own party or party alliance. Today, if you were to look at Prime Minister Modi, his party, the NDA, I'm talking about the party alliance, it controls both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That makes Prime Minister Modi very powerful, because he can get his policy passed through both these houses, make that into a law, and once it is passed into a law, then the courts will normally support it unless and until the policy is going against, let us say, the Constitution. So we have a Prime Minister. He has an idea, he wants to implement it. Now let us look at a situation when both the houses are not in his control. In that case, also the Prime Minister can come out with certain declarations, certain executive orders. Now, when the executive order is made, those will be followed by the government. However, they can be challenged in the court. And court might say that, look, Prime Minister, you are not having the power to decide whether this law is implementable or not. You need to get it from the houses. All right. So in a situation where the house is not supporting the Prime Minister still might be able to come out with some executive orders, but the executive orders can be challenged. But if the house is supporting, then executive order can be immediately followed by a law, or directly they can do a law. And once the houses pass it, it becomes a law to be adhered by everyone. As I said earlier, Prime Minister Modi is powerful because both the houses are going to support him, because his party alliance has the majority. Now, this is the current situation in US. In US, President Trump is the president, which is the Prime Minister equivalent of India. Now, there are two houses. We have Lok Sabha, we have Rajya Sabha. Similarly, we have House of Commons, which is equivalent to the Lok Sabha. And we have Senate, which is equivalent to the Rajya Sabha. Now, President Trump's party, the Republican Party, controls the Senate, and in all probability is going to control the House. Why do I say all probability? Because all the results of the elections are still not out, but everyone understands and accepts the fact that Republicans are going to control the House as well. Therefore, President Trump is going to become very, very powerful, because the houses will support his policy vision. Now, is this the first time President Trump is getting this advantage? Answer is no. Even the first tenure of his, in the first 2 years, President Trump has had majority both in the Senate as well as the House. Then the question comes, so then why are we so much worried? Even earlier, he had both the houses controlled. Now also he has both the houses in control. Previously, there were checks. Now also there will be checks. So why are we so concerned? To answer that, I need to tell you what has happened. The second tenure of President Trump is very, very different from the first tenure of President Trump. When the first time President Trump took up the presidency, he was a newbie. In the sense, he was not a politician, he had entered politics. People did not know him as much, and more importantly, people did not support him as much. And the support did not come both from the US citizens itself as well as from the Republican Party. So, President Trump in the first tenure did not get the majority of popular votes. In sense, he won the presidency, but more number of people across America actually voted for Hillary Clinton. This time around, President Trump has a majority in popular votes as well, which means majority of the people have supported President Trump, especially two of his policies. One, economy itself. They are demanding the fact that the US economy engine be speeded up. They're demanding the fact that their wages be increased. They're demanding the fact that inflation be reined in. And the second important area where majority of the Americans who have supported Trump have implicitly or explicitly agreed is on immigration. They now genuinely think immigration has become a challenge to the country. So as I started with saying earlier, President Trump in the first tenure did not have majority support from his own people. Now he does. Second, when he became the president the first time, there were many members in the Republican Party who were actually against Trump. If not necessarily openly, they were at least willing to debate, discuss, and even oppose a few of his policies. So when President Trump wanted certain things passed as a law, there were people within the Republican Party sitting in the houses who said, no, I'm not going to support that. They voted against President Trump's policies. But now, this has also changed. Republican Party is subservient completely to Trump. They are going to do what Trump is asking him to do, them to do. So the opposition within the Republican Party has actually petered down so much that people who are Republicans in the House would be doubly worried to go against President Trump, even if they were to disagree with President Trump. So today we have blind followers in these two houses who are going to do precisely what President Trump is going to ask them to. Have you heard about this earlier? Yeah, many countries. Okay, so the opposition within the Republican Party has come down drastically. Therefore, President Trump is very, very powerful in terms of making it pass. The third thing that you need to understand is, unlike in the first tenure of the presidency, where most of the people who supported President Trump were uneducated or less educated workers, this time the support has also come from educated, young, urban crowd. Now you may ask, so what? The fact of the matter is, knowing President Trump, he likes to keep his promise for his supporters, those who have voted for him. So now the read is that he is not just going to come out on those policies which will improve the standing of the blue collar workers, which is the factory workers. He is also going to come and support the policies of the white collared workers, which is the educated youth. And unfortunately, the way the whole system works, a victory for you, an immigrant from India in a job market, is a defeat for the American educated youth, because in a way, and rightly so too, you probably are taking away their jobs. And more number of educated youth enter the country, India or from elsewhere, supply of talent increases, and when the supply of talent increases, the wages come down. And the decrease in wage, we are ready to accept, because after all, when we are going to another country, we are fine, because we believe there are other benefits which are going to come. But this decrease in wages will also impact the American citizens, because they are also in the same economy. So yes, the fact that he has won the popular vote, the fact that this time he has got support from the educated youth, especially from the urban area, also it's increased, not majority, but much better than what he had 8 years back, is going to be a bad news for us. Now, let me talk about the whole journey again. And I'm talking about this journey because you need to understand uh, the impact that he can have on us at different phases. And maybe many of you are at different phases. Phase number one, getting the F1 visa. So when you are going abroad for education to the US, you need to get H1B visa. Now, once you go abroad, you finish your graduation, then you are looking for OPT, the optional practical training. Now, during graduation, you might look for CPT. CPT and OPT are very similar. Now, so you therefore want to understand, will my CPT or OPT rule be impacted? Because without CPT and OPT, your ability to make money there or gain experience will be impacted. Now, later you will obviously like to work there, which is where the H1B visa comes into picture. And related to H1B visa is the H4 visa. All right. So, for example, if I am working in US in H1B visa, then my dependents, including my spouse, will get H4 visa. And then, of course, the citizenship. So, I'm going to be talking about all these in one at a time, but let me start with the most important, something that was impacted much more strongly in the first tenure, that is the H1B visa. So, what did President Trump do in the first tenure as far as H1B visa is concerned? The first and the foremost thing he did was he came out with a big thing, Buy American and Hire American, which basically meant that companies should give preference to Americans for employment over any immigrants, which also includes immigrants from India. Which basically means that if for a given job, an American is eligible, he or she should be preferred. And if an American is not there, then the opportunity can be given to the immigrants. Now, this is something that is valid in all the countries, all right? But it was not enforced so strongly. What President Trump did was he gave more disincentives, that is punishment in a way, for companies which were taking more immigrants. What he did was very simple. Number one, he increased the fees for the whole process. So if I am a company and I need to employ someone who is an immigrant from India, a student who has finished masters probably, I needed to be sponsoring him, but for that I need to now pay more. Now understand what happens. Therefore, if I am a company and there are two people who are, applying for it, one is an American, the other is an Indian immigrant, there is a disincentive for me to go for an Indian American. Now, the second thing was there's a lot of talk going on. And sometimes, when the talk goes, it also influences the company. The talk was company is biased against Americans. So companies had to prove their Americanness. And how they did was very simple. They took more people who were citizens. And it was also done by companies, Indian service companies, TCS, Wipros, all right, companies whose business model normally dependent on immigrants. So even this talk impacted negatively the job opportunities for the students of India who had done their masters or bachelors and looking for the job. The third thing he did was the company, in this case, me, if I have to take an immigrant, I had to prove the fact that Americans are not harmed, which basically means I have to prove the fact that I tried to look for an American for that position and I was not able to get it, and therefore now I'm taking an immigrant. And the scrutiny for this increased. So companies therefore had a very huge disincentive in taking the students from India in their payrolls. Now let's also not forget another model. The model is many students who are doing their masters in the US, and I'm talking about masters more because majority of the Indians who go there are going for masters. They don't work directly for the company. They work for consultants. All right. So there is a American company. They outsource it to the consultants. You are recruited by the consultants, and then you are doing the project of the company, but you are an employee of the consultants. This is what is known as third party. Now, in quite a few companies like TCS, Wipros, etc., what they also do is they send employees from India to the company in the US. And which company is this? It's a client company. All right. And they are working for the client, sitting in the client company, but they are getting paid by the domestic company. TCS, Wipros, all these companies have that model. This is what is known as third party location. All right. So you are in the third party location. Now, H-1B visa for these people were also impacted because now the companies had to give bigger proof for saying that you had to go through a third party. And more importantly, H-1B visa is normally given for 3 years. Trump, in many cases, reduced it for 1 year. Okay. So what is the consequence for you? For you to protect yourself, it is very essential that you become a direct employee of an American company rather than go via consultancy route, which has been the traditional and majority of Indian pathway. Now, this is also something that you need to understand. Now, let's try to also understand how the H-1B visa is selected. Right now, H-1B visa is selected on what is known as a blind lottery, which means, let us say, you and your friend, both of you go to the US, you have finished your master's, both of you apply for H-1B visa. Now, you end up getting a good job, better salary, your friend probably goes through a consultant, and the salary is not as much. Okay? Now, what will happen is, currently, the probability of you getting the H-1B visa and your friend getting the H-1B visa is same. It's a blind lottery. They don't look at the wages. Trump said, we need to look at the wages. Trump said, we need to look at which sector they're coming to. So if they are coming to a sector where there is already a lot of supply in America in terms of labor, then I'm not preferring you. Similarly, if your wages is lesser, then I'm not preferring you. Basically, what he was in a way doing was, he was saying, all right, I'm going to give you H-1B visa, but I'm going to give you H-1B visa if you are a person contributing more and earning more. All right. Does it make logical sense from American perspective? Answer is yes, of course it makes logical sense. But we are not talking from American perspective. We are talking from our perspective right now, right? For us, majority of the Indians, it's not a good news because majority of the Indians don't earn so much after doing the graduation there. So that also impacted. But does that mean whatever President Trump was doing was bad for us? Answer is no. There is one element which he did, which actually helped Indian students. And I talk about Indian students because majority of the Indian students go for master's degree. Now, blind lottery also means that, let us say you and your friend go, you are doing master's, your friend is doing bachelor's, and there's a third friend of yours. He is being sent by TCS to America. All right. Now, in this case, when the H-1B lottery is done, all the three of you have equal probability. Now, what President Trump did was, he gave more weightage for people who had done their masters. Therefore, President Trump's policy improved the probability of H-1B visa got by students from India who had done their masters in the US. And majority of you will come in that category. So yes, there were certain policies, quite sensible at them probably, which in this case, of course, was benefiting the Indian students who had done their masters. So this is as far as the H-1B visa is concerned. Now let's go back. Let's talk about OPT, the optional practical training. Now do remember the rule, current rule says that when you are going there for education, you get 12 months of OPT. However, if you are going for a STEM degree, and remember in STEM, M is not management, M is mathematics, then you get 24 months of more extension. In effect, and majority of you people, at least I advocate only STEM, therefore majority of you will get 3 years of OPT, good enough time for you to recoup the money that you have put on education, good enough for you to have improved your experience level thus improving your chances of getting a work visa either in the US, or if you're planning to come abroad in come back to India. Uh, so OPT is an essential element. But what President Trump did was he tightened that as well. Greater scrutiny. Now you may ask, what scrutiny? The point that you need to understand is, let us say I have done my mechanical engineering, and then I search for a job in mechanical engineering and I'm not getting a job in mechanical engineering. So I take up a job in another area. Now, legally, this is not allowed. Legally, OPT is given for you to take up a job in an area where you have done your master's. But companies were able to manage it by coming out with job description which seemed as if you are still in your own area. Okay, for example, just hypothetical, all right? I'm Conduira is there. So I am an IT company and I get a mechanical engineer. I will come out with a job offer where I will write the job description as somehow linked to mechanical itself, though it's not actually linked to mechanical. But that allowed me to take him, and more importantly, that student also could claim OPT. Now the scrutiny increased. So if you are a mechanical engineer, you had to have a job in the field of mechanical engineering to get that OPT benefit. If you're a computer science engineer, you had to get a job in the area of computer science for you to get the OPT. So the bottom line was, this did impact students who were at the bottom of the pyramid, who had gone there but were not actually getting the job of their choice. So if you notice, both from the H-1B visa and OPT policy, there's one consistency which is there. What is President Trump saying? He's saying, if you are good, we are in love with you. If you are good, you will have no struggle. If you are good, your probability will actually increase in terms of getting H-1B visa as well. But if you are not, academically that is, you go to a college which is not as good, your GPA is not very good, you're not being very serious in education, then it will be impacted. Now, from my perspective, it makes a lot of sense. But the reality is, majority of the students who are going are not necessarily falling in that category of good. So there are a lot of students who will be impacted. But these are going to be those students who probably are looking at the education way to go to the US and are not very serious about education. Now let's look at H-4 visa. Remember, H-4 visa is given to those dependents of H-1 visa. So let us say I'm working in the US and my wife, she is my dependent. I have H-1 visa. She will get H-4 visa. Now, H-4 visa basically means that she is dependent, but the law allowed her, by getting what is known as EDA, Employment Authorization Document, to also work. So I'm working, Deepthi is working. I'm making money, she's making money. Now I'm in H-1B visa, but she's in H-4 visa, but she has EAD. Now, Trump's perspective was very simple. All right, I invited Abdullah, you to come to the US. I allowed you to work, but now your wife is working. And in India cases, in majority of the cases, spouses also well educated. They also tend to have good experience. They are also taking away the jobs. So he came out with a policy which restricted H-4 visa people from working. So what is the impact of that? For majority of us Indians, one of the lure of the US is the money we make. Now, when I am making money and my wife is making money, I'm leading a better life. But now I am making money, my wife cannot work, and suddenly the lure actually goes down. It does impact what we can get out of the US. Now, again, I'm not talking from the American perspective, I'm talking from the Indian perspective, it is a disadvantage. Now let's go back again to one that is going to influence all of you who are looking forward to going to the US this year, the F-1 visa. What happened during Trump time to F-1 visa? Trump basically made the scrutiny more, which basically means that the visa interview became tougher, the documentation required for visas increased, scrutiny was much higher in understanding whether you will be an immigration risk or not. So You had to prove in the visa interview that you have a motivation to come back to India after you have graduated and probably worked during the OPT period. Now, how do we prove that? Now, what America says is, show me the fact that you have a link with your country. So I go to the interview room and I say, I have my parents who are getting old. I'm the only son. I need to be here. My wealth is in India. So obviously, I have a reason to come back to India. Now, do they make sense? Of course, they make sense. But fact of the matter is, majority of the Indians who have actually gone to the US and failed to come back also have their parents in India, also have their wealth in India, yet they have taken away the jobs in America. So if I am a VO, the visa officer, these stories that you make is not going to cut the ice. Therefore, the flexibility that you have in the visa interview is to a large extent limited, which also empowers them to reject your visas. Therefore, the visa rejection rate will increase. It did increase in the first tenure of President Trump. It will increase now as well. So, what should you do? Now, before I answer this, let's try to understand one or two elements of President Trump. President Trump, as I said, has the support of both the houses, the Senate and the House of the Commons. So if President Trump wants to do something, the first thing he can do is he can come out with an executive order. Now, executive order has one issue. People can mount a legal challenge. So the stronger way for him to come is to get it passed in both the houses, where he does have a majority. So yes, there's a chance of passing. But understand, exactly like India, in US, it does not mean that he can pass anything he wishes. There are certain bills which require majority. There are certain bills which require super majority. Certain elements of law, for example, President Trump, during the first tenure, banned H-1B visa. He said, I'm not going to issue H-1B visa. I'm not joking. It actually happened, all right? The excuse he said was very simple. We are impacted by COVID. Many of our citizens have lost out. They need opportunity. I'm not going to allow this opportunity to be taken by the immigrants, so I'm going to stop issuing H-1B visa. He did that through an executive order. And guess what? H-1B visas were not given. Now, companies which were impacted, which dependent on the immigrants and the talent that immigrants brought in, they went to the court, and courts decided against it. So there is a check that is there. However, you need to understand this can be passed through a law. So he can go to the houses and say, all right, I'm interested in stopping the H-1B visa, do it. But in this case, he needs a super majority, and he does not have a super majority. What he has is only a majority. So can H-1B visa be stopped? Answer is no. But can the president, even without the support of the House, come out with rules which require greater scrutiny? Answer is yes. So as far as the procedure, etc., is concerned, those can be done by the president the way he wishes to. So he can say, all right, this year let's take more Chinese, let's take less Indians. This year let's stop taking H-1B visa, giving H-1B visa or F-1 visa for students coming from Iran because I don't like them. All right, those things can be done, and he did also, but he cannot remove H-1B visa. Now, one of the biggest debating points I'm seeing appearing in a lot of Instagram and other social media is that, can President Trump stop giving US citizenship to a child born in US to a person who is there in US legally? For example, I'm in the US, I'm in H-1B visa, I'm not a citizen of America, but I end up having a daughter. Current rule says that she will be given the citizenship because she was born in the US. Now, can President Trump come out with an executive order saying that, no, 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 let's not do that? All right. He wishes to do that. Believe me, he has already mentioned the fact that we should not give citizenship just because someone were born within the geography of US. Can he stop? Answer is he can't stop, because that requires extra super majority. That means the houses would have to agree to it. Now, houses will not agree to it because Democrats are not very happy about what has happened. But having said that, Democrats will also probably support a lot of policies of President Trump because majority of the people seem to have been inclined towards that. So the policies President Trump comes which help reduce the immigrants uh, probably will also get a support from the Democrats, because in the election, people have spoken. They have said that immigration is a big issue for us, and that is the reason why they voted for Trump in the first place. So there are going to be a lot of Democrats who are probably going to, support certain policies, but not very drastic policies. But they are going to support certain policies, which will allow President Trump to put into force, put into law certain things he believes very strongly about. Okay, so with all this, what should you do? What are you? Let us say you are in India, you are planning to go to the US for the for the summers or for the fall. What should you do? Number one, understand this. It's very, very important you understand this, because your battle is not just to go to the US. Your battle is to go to the US, get the OPT, get the H-1B visa, and for many of you, probably get the citizenship as well. So first rule is prepare for the visa interview very strongly. Have your documentation, which is strong. The answers that you plan for to deliver in the visa interview has to capture your understanding of President Trump's policies. Second thing, select the specialization very carefully. Why do I say specialization should be selected very carefully? My belief is that President Trump will be successful in bringing about a change in H-1B visa, which will require people where there's a shortage of talent to prove that Americans are not there. So we should take that specialization where we believe we will have the upper hand. So don't take specialization where too many Americans are already there. Try to go to the area where the demand is growing, supply is less, therefore the country does not have a problem getting you and giving you the H-1B visa. Now understand, this is not a fight that is happening only in the US. This is the fight happening in Australia. This is the fight happening in Canada. This is fight happening. Let's not forget yesterday's big news. Canada has removed the student route, the student scheme, direct scheme. So this is happening everywhere. We need to be sensible enough when we go to any foreign country to remember the fact that we are not going only for education. We are going for job as well. So we should select that area where jobs are also there. Second, go to the area where salaries are also high enough. Because as I said, President Trump is going to introduce a bill, and it will be passed, in my view, that is, which will say that, look, I'm going to give H-1B visa to people with higher salaries. The third thing, choose the college carefully. Why is college very important? Majority of the colleges in the US, and I've heard many Indians also talk about it, that college does not really matter. Of course it really matters. It matters because majority of the Indians who go to such colleges end up becoming a part of the consultancy firms. They earn decently well. Consultancy firms also pay quite decently well, $75,000 to $80,000 per year to start with, in the technology side, that is. But you don't want H-1B visa for 1 year. You don't want to, be in a process where you need to prove, or your company, your consultants have to prove. So even consultant model is failing. So you should look for a job which allows you to join a company directly. And that is not going to come for everyone. It's going to come for people who are talented, but also people who have a right pedigree. Pedigree means the brand of the college. Please see to it that you are selecting the states carefully. Now, why am I emphasizing this as the most important element? The point you need to understand is, let us say I am not that great a student in India. My GPA sucks, but I love America. I want to go to America. So guess what? I applied and I ended up getting a college which was not that great. Does that mean I'm going to stay back in India? No, I'm not going to stay back in India. Because let me assure you, people, the opportunity that you have in India is also equally less. And most of us have a hope that when we go there, we will magically transform. And I've seen people actually transform too. Or the fact that I will have higher opportunity there. And yes, that is what has resulted in many people going there and benefiting from it as well. So people will still go. But when you are choosing a state, try to reduce the risk. What does that mean? Okay, now this is where I'm going to talk about an Indian analogy. I'm Prime Minister Modi. I come out with certain policies. Now, I might not even, I might not even have come out with an executive order for that. I believe, and I publicize the fact that I believe that. You know what is going to happen? All the states which are ruled by, either his party or his alliance are probably going to embrace his vision. They are going to implement it much more strongly. But let me assure you, Tamil Nadu will not. Karnataka will not. All right. So the point that you need to understand is the same thing is true in the US. If President Trump were to come out with certain laws, remember, as much as the president is powerful, governor is also powerful. If the president is a Republican, which he is, and you prefer a state which is majority Republican, then whatever policy President Trump is going to come in is going to be implemented. As I said, the opposition for President Trump within the Republican Party has actually evaporated. But imagine the fact that you go to a state which is either very lean, which is thinly leaned over Republican, like Texas, or you go to a party, you go to a state where Democrats are in power, for example, New York, then the chances of that drastic action being promoted by President Trump might not get reflected on the ground because the Democratic governor is going to say no. So, does therefore politics play a part? Of course it does. All this is politics. So you can probably look at certain states which are not too strongly Republicans. Now, understand the fact that there are states which are strongly Republicans, there are states which are not as strongly Republicans, but it is Republican. Government is also Republican. You can prefer those, though the risk is there. Now, why am I against states which are strongly Republicans? See, the opposition is not just going to come, unfortunately, from President Trump's, laws. It's also going to come from his statements. And one of the very strong thing is immigrants are bad. Now, unfortunately, therefore, in my view, in states which are very strongly Republicans, people are also convinced immigrants are bad. Therefore, the chances of discrimination, of racism is going to be a bit higher. So, in my view, yes, preference should be given to democratic ruled states during the Trump ones to reduce the pressure, the tension, especially if your profile is not that strong, or you are a little sensitive person, you get impacted by racism, etc. You are not so thick-skinned, or you are a little introverted, you like to be with your own kind, then of course you stand out in this case. And therefore, if you are in a state where racism is high, you will be singled out. Today's NDTV, if you were to have a look at it, you look at the news channels as well, you will hear a word called resistance to. Resistance to. What is this resistance to? Yesterday, many states, democratic ruled states, the governors have formed committees to come out with strategies for opposing Trump's extreme policies. So what I'm saying is not theory. What I'm saying is already in implementation. In those states where Democrats are in rule, they're already planning, understanding the fact that once President Trump truly takes the power, there are going to be certain policies which are going to be impacting. So there is a degree of shield which you might have if you are in a Republican America, in a Democratic state. So that is also something that you probably would have to look at. All right. So to sum everything up and to end this, President Trump is not necessarily a bad news. In my view, Republicans are very good when it comes to the economy. Republicans believe the fact that government's interference should be less, or they believe in giving tax cuts. They like economy being buoyant. So President Trump, and let's not forget, he's a shrewd businessman. Whether whatever he seems like, he's a very shrewd businessman. He's supported by people like Elon Musk, etc. He's surrounded by people who are rich. So I do believe for economy, he's a good news. But economy is not always something that a president can control, because even President Biden would have loved to have control of the economy, of the inflation and various other things. So the bottom line is that I do believe that the economy of the US is likely to improve, creating better jobs, increasing the salaries. When it comes to the inflation, let's not forget, President does not have too much control over that, because it is the Federal Reserve which has the control, and they are independent. But there are certain policies that President Trump has talked about, like increasing tariffs for the Chinese goods and various other countries as well, which can put pressure on inflation. So not very sure how that will meet out, but the fact of the matter is, overall, I do believe that the country is going in the right direction when it comes to the economy and the job front. This is not something which is going to be a contribution of President Trump. Already under President Biden, it has been moving in the right direction. Many people are applauding the way the US has been able to control the inflation without pushing recession. So yes, he is a good news for economy, but the question is not that. Question is, jobs will be created, all right, but will the jobs be created for me? I'm an immigrant from India. Now, this is where you need to be very powerfully convincing them that you deserve the OPT, you deserve the H-1B visa, all right? And the best way to do so is to go there and put the best fight. But when you go there to the right specialization, focus on the right college, focus on the right state, and state not just because of politics, but also because of the jobs available. For example, you are in finance, try to go to New York area. If you're in technology, California is good. So states of this nature, do make it a point to focus, but be aware of the fact that this political development that has happened in the US is going to impact you, and it has to be therefore a part of your strategy input as well. All right. Now, that's the thing which I wanted to cover. In case you do have any questions, please do make it a point to ping me here. I am anyway putting across my WhatsApp number, both in Vizag and Hyderabad. You are welcome to ask me any questions you might have. And yes, if you are a person planning to go for the fall of 25, feel free to get in touch. Let me assure you, our ability to look at the profile, help you with that is much stronger. But having said that, I do have one last suggestion. Keep a backup country. Or if you are a person who is working right now, see to it that you're not resigning till you have got the visa, because the risk now has actually increased. Okay. Now, there are a few people, my students who are already in the US, who have pinged me up to ask, will our situation improve? As I said, you don't have a risk of F1 visa, but you do have a risk of the OPT, you have the risk of H1B visa. Therefore, yes, you need to fight a bit harder. But I do believe that his policies are going to, accelerate the job creation, the increase in salaries. But you need to have the right skills, including the networking skill, to see to it that you are, benefiting from that opportunity. Okay, so that's about it. I wish you all the best. I am a person, I always believe in the fact that one has to be ambitious. Let's not forget, I was working with the government. I quit that, went to the private sector, worked with Crystal, quit that to start my own business because I love money. I'm a capitalistic person. I believe the fact that talent should be respected and rewarded, and the US is about that. So in my view, does US continue to stand as the top choice? Answer is yes, big way. All right. And but having said that, one should also be appreciative of the risk that is there and be prepared for it and incorporate that in the strategy. See to it that you are not caught wrong-footed, because the true battle is going to be when you land up there. So if you think that by getting the F1 visa, your life has changed, it has not changed. A door has opened, but still a bloody, uh, you know, stressful uh, pathway. And the next battle is going to be on the H1B visa, then the green card. Until you get the green card, pressure is going to be there. Plan for a backup country too, because if it so happens that visa does not happen, or you suddenly believe the fact that the risk in US is more, probably you should be looking at other countries. There are good options for people coming from pharma background, technology background. I normally advocate Ireland in a big way. But every country, may that be Ireland, Canada, Australia, Germany, all these countries have tightened their rules because their citizens are fed up with immigrants. Okay, let's not forget, this is not just a story there, it's a story in India too. So we should be appreciative of it, we should be understanding of it. But as I keep telling my students, be selfish, think from your perspective, and see to it that the strategy that you plan maximizes. We are not politicians to worry about what happens to Americans, what happens to someone else. We are people fighting our own battle, making our own sacrifices, taking our own risk. So be selfish enough. Set huge goals, take a path of growth, love the money or the power if you can get, but fight because the pathway just got a bit tougher. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Today being a Sunday too, but I will make it a point to take sessions every Sunday on probably each country. The reason is I strongly believe the fact that a lot of decisions taken by students are taken on basis of what my seniors have done, or hearing advice from people who don't tell the whole story, or frankly they don't know the whole story. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of reels saying that now the people who are born in America will not be given citizenship. That is bull. All right, that requires a change of constitution, which President Trump can't do on his own. Needs a super majority. But then I did mention that Democrats will probably support few policies of President Trump because there's a pressure from their own constituents, but they will not support such an extreme policy immediately, because this does not just impact Indians. It impacts a lot of people who are there from Latino countries, who also form an important chunk of the vote bank. All right. So yes, if there was a policy that impacts only Chinese and Indians, I'm sure Democrats also would have rushed to go against us. But there are certain benefits that we are going to derive because there are a lot of other immigrants whom Americans also need. So bear that distinction in mind while you understand. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me up. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Have a nice weekend. In case, as I said, I would have loved to take certain questions from you people here, but I understand, many of you probably want to do it privately. So if that is the case, ping me up. My WhatsApp number, both of Vizag and Hyderabad, is there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Take care.